What's going on YouTube? This is Connor with Tournament Technologies and we're coming back at y'all this morning with another installation video. Today we're going to be installing this Garmin Force 50-inch shaft on this 18-foot Ranger. We went ahead and removed the customer's pre-existing trolling motor just so we can make this installation video a little bit quicker for y'all. We're going to walk y'all through a couple things that you're going to need to know and a couple quick tips and tricks to make your install a lot easier, and we'll show you the end product here shortly. The Garmin trolling motor does come with the hardware to mount the bracket itself to the nose of the boat. I just prefer to use all stainless steel hardware, and the fender washers that are laying there in that group are a little bit larger than what comes with the Garmin. So I prefer those little bit larger fender washers just to give you a little bit more rough water support up underneath there, give the trolling motor a little bit something bigger to hold on to. Just me personally. You can use the hardware that comes in the box. If you're doing this at home, that's not a problem at all. Like I said, it's just something we prefer to do. So we're gonna go ahead and start putting some anti-seize on our 1/4-inch Phillips head bolts and start running them through into the hole. That way we can start bolting the bracket itself down. And you always wanna use some sort of anti-seize when you're dealing with stainless steel. Come back with my drill driver, put my number 3 Phillips head, drive it down in. All right, so now that we got our bolts and everything started, I'm gonna go ahead and run our trolling motor strap up underneath, fish it through, and verify that the buckle will sit where we want it at. Looks good to me. And now we're gonna go back through and tighten everything up with our 7/16 and our number 3 Phillips head bit. So now that we got everything tightened up, we got our strap on, we're good there. We're gonna go ahead and start mounting up the top part of the trolling motor. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to take the plastic coverings off of the lift assist shocks, grab our sub-assembly, and the first thing I'm going to do here is just come and loosen up the depth collar and make it a little bit shorter to work with and set it aside. That way I can grab all of our mounting hardware we're going to need for the sub-assembly itself. All right, so the first pin that you're going to start with is going to be in package B, and this is going to be the first pin that you're going to go ahead and install or mount the sub-assembly to the bracket with. Take the green tape loose from the bushings, and all that green tape is therefore is just for shipping to make sure the bushings don't come loose. And it's a lot, trust me, it's a lot harder to install if you accidentally leave the green tape in there and forget about it. So now that we've got that green tape loose, we're gonna go ahead and route our pull cable however you want to up and out of the way. Grab pin B, and now we're gonna grab the sub-assembly, lay all of our wires up and out of the way, make sure our cable is out of the way in there, and go ahead and start lining everything up. And if you do this right, it should just slide easily all the way through. Now we can let the trolling motor hang right there. Actually, I'm probably gonna break this depth collar back loose again and let it down just a hair. It's sitting a little bit more straight up and down. Next thing we're gonna do is we are going to find our pull cable, and we are going to make sure that it is routed properly through the indicated channels. And this is probably gonna take just a hair of finagling, and up and out of the way. So now we got that. 2 cables we got now are our transducer, built-in transducer, the GT54, and then all the power supply. I'm going to kind of lay those out of the way like so. And then what we're going to do from here is we're going to go ahead and mount up the lift assist shocks, which are going to lock that pin we just installed in place. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the top one there. And we're going to come in here. You're going to go to package C, which is going to have all of your Phillips head stainless steel bolts with blue Loctite on them, and these are going to be what you need to mount the lift assist shock and the alignment pin in place. I'm going to grab a screwdriver for this and not a drill to avoid any cross threading, as they are fine thread bolts and not coarse thread. And I'm not going to tighten one side down before I put the other. I'm just snugging them up to hold them in place. I can go ahead and tighten that side down. You don't want to go super tight because you will crush that plastic. And now we're going to come up here and go ahead and lay our bracket right there for the time being, and we're going to go ahead and move on to inserting the second pin that we're going to need to make this installation happen. We're going to, like I said before, we're going to remove the green tape holding the bushings in place and grab our second pin, which is going to be package D, and this is going to be the pin with your threaded ends on it. You're going to have 2 small stainless steel washers and 2 small Allen head bolts. So what you're going to need is you're going to need a number 4 Allen key or Allen wrench, whatever you want to call it. And what I personally prefer to do is go ahead and finish one side first, and that'll be the side away from where I'm driving the pin through. That way it stops in the proper alignment. And then you're going to have to play with the trolling motor a little bit to get it to line up perfectly. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to drop this depth collar all the way down. That way I can rotate the trolling motor out of the way, pull the stow and deploy cable, unlatch it, and get it to lift up. And then I'm going to tilt the sub-assembly, tuck the shaft up underneath the nose of the boat pretty much to where you can get that top piece to line up. Then I'm gonna go ahead and stow it back down. And now I'm gonna go ahead and line my pin up. It does not matter which side you start from. And you're just gonna kind of, again, finagle it to where you can get your pin to line up. Push that pin all the way through and come and grab another number 4. That way you can hold from both sides. Go ahead and start this one by hand to avoid any cross threading. Start screwing it in. And then you're gonna wanna go ahead, give yourself some leverage on both sides and tighten both down. Now we've got our sub-assembly installed. Next thing we're gonna do is pop this cable, lift up just a hair to where we can access underneath. And I'm gonna get the trolling motor to a neutral position, holding onto the trolling motor, that way it doesn't fall on me. And I'm gonna go ahead and install this cable here, which is gonna go into the electric control module in there. Got that installed. So now I'm gonna let the trolling motor sit right there with my hand on it, make sure it doesn't fall. And I'm going to line up my other pin right there with the stow and deploy shock. Again, with your 2 stainless steel bolts, just gently start them, hold it in place, get them tightened down. We're good to go there. So now we're gonna go ahead and lay the trolling motor back in the stowed position. From there, we're gonna move on to bag E, which is gonna be your pull cable handle. What you're gonna do is you're gonna take the pull cable, run it through the base of the handle, like so. Then you're gonna go washer, and then Carter pin. You're going to slide it down. You're going to notice that in the handle it's got a smaller side and a bigger side. The smaller side is obviously going to be for the smaller side of the pin. The larger side is going to be for the larger side, and it should sit in there just like that. Now you're going to take the top piece, obviously put it on like so. Take the 2 Phillips head screws that came with it, and I'm just going to start them. Then I'm going to go retrieve a smaller Phillips head driver, and I'm just snugging it down. I don't want to crack the plastic. And there's that. And now we're going to move on to bag F, which is going to be all your wire rigging and stuff like that. You're going to come with a couple clips for holding the transducer cable to the power cable. 2 metal clips with the bolts. You're going to hold the power cable down the reading conduit there. First, grab our 2 cables, undo our power and our transducer, and I usually start the transducer first and then have the power cable help push it through. I push them both at the same time, coming out the end down there. You want to make sure when you get towards the end that you're leaving a large enough service loop to give you play. That way you're not pinching or pulling any cables or damaging any cables, nothing like that. So that's usually about the size of the service loop I like to leave. I'm going to go ahead and attach my transducer wire to the power wire coming down with the clips provided. Again, verify everything's coming out the end nice and neat, not pinching any cables. Now I'm going to grab one of these metal clips with mounting holes in them and 2 of these stainless steel Allen head bolts again. And these are going to be number 3s. So you're going to grab a number 3 Allen key. I'm going to just start with 1, and I'm going to come around. And it does not matter whether your transducer wire is running on top or on bottom. You can mount this cable either way, and you can mount the mounting bracket either way. And we're going to repeat these same steps with the bottom mounting bracket on the other end of the conduit as well. All right, so the next step we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and unbox or take it out of the packaging all of the parts for the bounce buster. So you're going to have bracket, you're going to have your 2 rubber knobs. One's going to be for the top, one's going to be for the bottom, and then you're going to also have your stainless steel hardware to mount the bounce buster bracket to the sub-assembly of the trolling motor. What we're going to do first is go ahead and set our 3 mounting bolts to the side. Go ahead and put our washers on, and these are going to be 9/16. Put our 9/16 socket on, grab our 3 stainless steel bolts, come over here, and looks like we're going to want to go to the top side, and we're going to go ahead and start those 3 bolts by hand. Now that we got them started by hand and they are not tight yet, what I'm going to do is run the bounce buster pull through, and what this is going to do is this is going to determine the angle that the bracket sits at, because it is actually somewhat adjustable in there. I'm going to hold it tight in that position. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to snug down this bracket, not tighten it all the way down yet, just snug it down to where it stays in place. Remove the bounce buster shaft, set it back to the side, then come back in for our final tightening. And now we're going to reinsert our bounce buster shaft. You always want the hole on the end that you're going to cut off. That way you don't have a weak spot down here towards the base. And you're going to take just some sort of knife, screwdriver, or something like that, and you're going to mark how much we need to cut loose. So on the Garmin Force, you have 2 different rubber knobs. One's going to be for the base, which is pretty self-explanatory. It's flat, but you're going to have one on the top that has a notch cut in it, and this is going to be to hold your pull cable, your trolling motor. So I basically like to have mine up a little bit, so I'm probably going to cut up here. And I'm just going to mark it with my screwdriver, pull it out, and set it to the side later to get cut. Now we're going to go ahead and install our prop. We're going to undo all the hardware. So you're going to go and install your alignment key first into the shaft. Make sure that it is horizontal. If you go vertical, obviously it's going to slide out on you and you're going to drop it on the floor and lose it. After you got your alignment key put on, you're going to go prop. You're going to go large anode, large flat washer on top of the anode, the split washer or lock washer on top of both of those, and then you're going to go stainless steel nut on top of everything else and tighten it down. And that is going to be a 9/16 nut, so you can use the same ratchet and socket that we were using to mount the bounce buster. So like I said, the alignment key horizontally, not vertically. You line it up with your prop. Basically, all the prop fins are going to be where they're horizontal is going to line up with the key slot on the back. You can see how the prop fins are horizontal. Same thing there with the slot. Slide it on, shake it around a little bit, verify it goes into place. Take our anode and 2 washers in order that we talked about, slide them up on the shaft, and then take our stainless steel nut and start him by hand. Then come back and grab our ratchet and go ahead and tighten him down a little bit past snug. All right, so now we're going to move on to the crucial part of wiring up this trolling motor. So on this Ranger, you do have a junction block up here in the trolling motor power cable. So all we have to do here is we've already got a hole that was previously drilled. So we're going to run our power cables in. And we're going to leave enough slack, because as many of you know, on these Rangers, you do have a nice shroud right here that routes the cable out through there. Lay our transducer wire to the side too, because we're actually going to end up routing it through this plate instead of down there by the power cable. All right, so now that we got our trolling motor ready to be wired up, we're going to go ahead and first route the foot pedal power cable through a previously drilled hole that we have here into the recessed foot pedal well. And the reason we're going to run it through before our power cable, obviously our power cable is a lot larger than the trolling motor foot pedal power cable, so that leaves us lots of room to run it in there, as if you were to run it in vice versa with the power cable first, you'd never get that in through that small hole. We're going to go ahead and route it like so. And we're going to leave plenty of slack. And just to show you that shroud, we'll go ahead and set this back in. You can see now our wire is going to run out nicely right there. And we'll go ahead and put the shroud back on just while we're talking about it. So we're going to go ahead and grab all of our black factory screws and just start snugging everything down. With this polyboard style material, you don't want to go super tight on the screws, otherwise you'll end up just pulling them right through. Don't make that mistake. Make sure all your cables are loose. You don't want to be pinching anything. All right, so like we talked about before, the supply for the power to the trolling motor does have a distribution block here. So we're going to go ahead and take the 2 ends that were cut loose from the previous trolling motor. And that is going to be, this one happens to be 3/8 inch nuts, but just check your size before you start trying to pull everything apart. I'm going to take those loose and get the ends out of the way, and then I'm just going to put these nuts back on by hand while we prep our cables for install. All right, so right now we're just prepping the force foot pedal power cable to get installed with some heat shrink ring ends. Since this boat has a 24-volt system, we're going to be able to wire it directly to the trolling motor system and not to the 12-volt side. So it's going to tie into our distribution block up here with our trolling motor power. So we're going to go ahead and just take one side loose at a time. And I'm actually going to go with the foot pedal power underneath. Then we're going to come back with the power for our trolling motor. Go ahead and stick him in there. Grab one of those nuts and put it on there and get it started. That way it's holding everything in place. And then we're going to do the same thing on the negative side. Grab our other nut, start him by hand, grab our wrench. And then now that we're done with all of that, we're going to close that panel up. And all we're going to do is just take some electrical tape to close it up. Make sure we don't have anything rubbing or laying down on top of those exposed terminals in there. We're going to go ahead and clean those wires up here in just a second after we verify that everything powers on and works properly. Now we're going to grab our foot pedal and we're going to plug the power cord in to the bottom. Make sure you're following your alignment key on the power cable, routing the cable in the channel in the bottom of the pedal right there. Pull our wire back through and just let it sit right there before we drill our holes for mounting it. So now with everything still open, that way we can check if we got a problem. We're going to come back here and power up the trolling motor. We heard it beep. So it is getting power, and we're just going to go like this. And you can see up there with the indicator lights, you have a green battery, which means we've got good power. And you've got a green sync light, which means we should have foot pedal connectivity. So we're going to go ahead and steer, and we sure do. Now we're going to verify that we got speed, so we're going to crank it up. As you guys can see right there, prop spinning, and we're good to go there. I'm gonna come back here and cut the power back off now, just so we can keep working on everything, tightening our wires up. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and start cleaning our wires up now. We don't want everything looking real messy and ugly up in here. So we're gonna go ahead, and now that we know that our foot pedal is gonna go about right there, we're gonna take most of the slack out and just wind some service loops and everything. Throw one zip tie in, zip tie them up like that. Throw another one in after the fuse. Cut our ends loose. Now we are going to leave the trolling motor cable itself loose in there, just because we don't have that much excess to work with and we don't want to be putting a bind on those cables. So now that we've got everything cleaned up in there and we verify the power is good, we have gone ahead and ran our transducer wire as well. So we're going to go ahead and turn our panel back the way it's supposed to be, and we're going to take some of the slack out. That way everything looks nice and clean. We're going to leave enough slack on the other side. We're going to wrap a couple of service loops in it, throw a couple just snug zip ties on the transducer wire. We're not tightening everything down, not putting it in a big bind. We're just snugging everything up. Now we can go ahead and start reinstalling our panel for the customer. Alright, now we got that tightened back up. We're going to go ahead and put our collar and weatherproof O-ring on our transducer cable. Make sure we have enough slack for everything. All right, so we are down to the home stretch on this forced trolling motor installation. One of the last steps we're going to do is go ahead and drill our mounting holes for the trolling motor foot pedal. And you're just going to eyeball it and make sure it's straight and center as possible. Mark your holes. Now, when I personally do these, I'm only going to drill 2 holes in a customer's boat. It doesn't take all 4 to hold a plastic foot pedal down. And since these are smaller holes, I can actually countersink them with the Phillips head. All right, so now that we're back and we got our other holes sealed up from the previous trolling motor, we're going to go ahead and line our new holes up, drop our screws in. And being that most of it is plastic, sadly, you don't want to screw down on it too hard. You don't want to crack any of the plastic or pull the screws through. So now that we're good to go for the customer, and the last thing we're going to do, which like I said, we're not going to bore y'all with that, we're just going to show you the end product, is we're going to go ahead and cut the bounce buster where we got it marked and install the bounce buster. All right, guys, so that's going to conclude the installation of this Garmin Forceless Range boat. We went ahead and got the bounce buster all finished up and everything like that. We ran the customer through everything he needs to do as far as calibrating stuff when he gets on the water. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video and found a couple things that'll help y'all if you decide to do this yourself. Be sure while you're here to give us a like, a follow, make sure you hit that notification bell and share this video with your friends. And if you got any other questions, comments, you can leave them down below. We'll see y'all in the next video.